Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, all from the perspective of a couple of Americans. This week, since Arsenal didn't have any club matches while on international break, we will have plenty to talk about with them, but also CONCACAF, UEFA, CAF, which is Africa, and plenty more, so stay tuned. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. I'm disappointing news to start with, as I have so far not been selected for the World Cup ticket draw. The second round, I think it's ongoing. I forget what the dates were, but it's so far not so good. But
right there with you. Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. They said ticket prices are going up substantially for games involving the host countries and the knockout stage games, which I suppose is like the least surprising outcome possible.
Mm-hmm.
As a reminder, FIFA's using the dynamic pricing, I think it's called. So it's
right.
The prices have started to change for the second draw based on what people were buying in the first one. So.
Oh, that's great. So the longer it takes for us to get selected to buy tickets, the more it's going to likely cost us. Okay.
Well, no, it depends, actually.
It depends, but right.
I mean,
as far as we know, they didn't drop the prices the last time around.
Right. In a sense, yes. However, you may start to see some of them come down for some of the more, what end up being some of the less popular games. Now, we're not really going to know that for sure until the World Cup draw, but that's only 3 weeks away. So we'll learn a lot more, because what'll happen then is you'll start to see the matchups, and then people are really going to focus in on some of the games versus others they won't. So that's going to have an impact. So we'll see what comes with that. Obviously still hopeful. And I think it's one of those, if you're really insistent on doing it, like you've really got your mindset on it, you'll be able to get to something. I don't know about like a particular game. You might have to, that one you're probably going to have to shell out for. And even then, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone apprised as our own ticket developments continue. So today was my son's last soccer game of the fall season. The way that his league does things now that he's in the more competitive travel level, it'll be the same team playing together in the spring, but they have a break over the winter. They might try and get together for a little bit of indoor training, but it's going to be sparse and irregular. But today was their last game. It was an amazing result. I've never been prouder of him as a player, as a goalkeeper today. It was a 6-0 victory. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen him earn the clean sheet quite the way that he did today, with some really amazing saves, including he had to defend his first penalty ever. Apparently they never worked on this in practice. So the ref, after he blew the whistle and pointed to the spot, he had to instruct him, like, no, you got to stand back. Like, no one had walked him through that before. I didn't cover it in the keeper training sessions I did, which I will be sure to when we do those in the spring. But he was confused, because it was also, honestly, it really wasn't a penalty. Like, it wasn't a foul. There was actually no contact. It just looked like it from his angle. Yeah. But, so
VAR,
everyone was
VAR.
Well, I have video, right? Like we talked about last week. I was recording the whole thing. I'm going to try and insert it somewhere around now when we're talking about it in the video. And I'll have to figure out a way to skip it for the podcast, because there isn't almost any audio going on during it. But
it's going to be really bad, because kids, of course, mimic what they see. The kids have been watching are probably standing there with the referee doing this, and the poor referee's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. Making the VAR rectangle, yeah. And also, we don't have a captain. I've never seen anyone wearing an armband on their teams. There is really no one who's empowered to talk to the referee other than the coach. And
the coach at that level, it's the coach. The coach, the players don't talk to the referee.
Right.
The only thing I remember ever saying to the referee was asking how much time was left.
Right.
Just kind of as a general, hey, how much more do we have?
Yep.
But otherwise, we did not speak to the referees.
Yeah, and generally he was good throughout the match. I mean, mistakes happen, and it's not anything that anyone would have argued when we were already at that point up at least 4 or 5-0 when that penalty call came in. But so he's telling him what to do, telling him stand on the line, all the rules. His team is yelling at him like, "No, in the middle, like make sure you're centered on the goal line." And the kid took a decent penalty shot. Unlike we talked about a few weeks ago, we had our first penalty shot that our team took, and the kid, never having practiced it, also kicked it straight at the keeper, and so it wasn't a goal, even though ideally a penalty kick should be one. This time, no, this kid kicked it off to the side. My son dove the right way and caught it and made the save, nice. And it was really, really incredible.
Nice.
He followed it up not too long after with another like caught save that he had to like kind of jump over to. It wasn't like a full on dive land on the ground, but like he had a few really key saves today. So nice. He's shaping up. It was really good. And that was all sick too. Like outside of the game, he was just like coughing nonstop all day long. And
Michael Jordan's flu game.
Exactly. So yeah, it was good. I was really proud of them. The team did great. They've earned their winter break. They overall had a great season. So it's nice. It's exciting.
Nice. Good stuff.
All right, over to Arsenal. So we apparently, I'm seeing from your notes for today, had some injuries during training. That's not what you want to see on international breaks.
Right. It's, again, I as we say every time, I like international breaks, but I follow the international game, so, deal with it. But obviously, from the fans' perspective, this is, of course, the nightmare scenario whereby players get hurt playing for their national teams. Probably the sadder one, I guess, is Riccardo Calafiori withdrew from training. He actually didn't play in either of Italy's games in this break. They had opened on Thursday. He missed that game. And then apparently went back to Arsenal before their second game against Norway. So we'll see. I don't know. Obviously, he's a player who had dealt with some injury concerns last year. He's been a key fixture for us. We're really not going to learn anything, of course, until Arteta starts talking before the game, which will probably be a week from now, or the game will be a week from now. Arteta won't say anything probably till Friday, but at that point we'll see. I mean, we'll get an update and see if he's in training. I'm not super optimistic, but that's mostly because I don't really know what it is, at least not with a little bit I've seen. All I know is that he left Italy's camp. The other one, which is a little scarier in the sense that we know what happened. Gabriel, playing for Brazil, a thigh injury, a muscle injury, came off. They were playing. We talked last time, right? Brazil was playing in the Emirates.
Yeah.
And it turns out that that didn't go so well during a friendly against Senegal. Came off and was substituted out. It appears, I'm just looking through the piece, he was reevaluated on Sunday, underwent imaging tests that revealed a muscle injury in his right thigh. They're not going to play on their second game of the break. Players are going to be in Lille in France, but he will not be there. He's, I guess, coming back, or staying in London, I guess we should say.
Right.
He'll be staying off. So that one's a little tougher. And that one, obviously, a muscular injury in the thigh. That's not good. I obviously we don't know anything. I don't want to speculate too much. But I would say don't be surprised if neither one of them is in the lineup on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a silver lining, I mean, I guess it's that we're deepest still on our defensive end of the roster. So, you imagine Miles Lewis-Skelly can come on, Mascara will come on. Like, we have kind of obvious players to come on for those two, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate it being Hincapié for Gabriel, but certainly Lewis-Skelly on the left. Okay. Because normally what we've seen is Mosquera come in for Saliba. He's, I think, more of the right-sided center back. Hincapié is more of the left-sided one. So that would be my guess is what we'll see. Of course, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they come back and it turns out they're fine. And as we talked as well about some of the rotation, we'll talk about this at the end, but a little bit of the rotation we might see this week. So it's unfortunate. Sure. Sort of the nightmare. The Gabriel one's the nightmare. I really don't know what the deal is with Calafiori. Apparently it was during training, which is one of those that could have happened at Arsenal. Like that's the thing. And you hope in both cases, you hope they're not serious and you hope they're back as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, with both of them being muscular things, that may have just been a ticking time bomb that happened to go off this week and would have with their own team. It's not like a collision or something like that really was just because of those specific circumstances.
Yeah, true.
But apparently there's been some news floating around for a while. We've had this on our list, I think, since shortly before or shortly after the last international break. But they've been talking about doing an expansion to the Emirates in the coming year or two. I don't remember the exact timeline on it. And talking about what Arsenal might do in the meantime.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. It's kind of wild to say this, but it's been 20 years since they moved into the Emirates. I came on board. We've talked a little bit about our background with Arsenal. I came on board in what ended up being the final season at Highbury, which I did not know at the time, any of that, because that's, it's brand new to everything. So, but it is kind of wild. I think that was 20 years ago, and then I just feel old. But that's... the stadium is, by all accounts, I don't want to say showing its age. There are certainly other stadiums in the league that are much more reflective of the phrase "showing their age." But it hasn't gone any serious. Apparently, has not gone any serious renovations or updates since then. So there's a lot of ideas being thrown out there. A lot of them are limited by the space they're in, and so the piece we had pulled this from was from the Daily Telegraph. I guess it was a piece about a month and a half ago when they ran it. I say beginning of October. And it sort of pointed out some of the geographic difficulties they're dealing with in terms of how the space is restricted and some of the ideas they're talking about. One of the bits, a lot of it is sort of interior kind of things like just updating different systems, software availability. I say software, but sort of updating some of the internal structure of it, the kind of thing that you would never notice. You wouldn't necessarily notice on it during a game, but it's kind of important to keeping everything running or keeping people's experiences good. Maybe renovating the luxury boxes, if that's the way you want to watch the game. But the big idea they were talking about was expanding the capacity of the stadium.
Okay, so that's good.
So the Emirates right now is, I think, and I should have pulled this up. I want to say it's like the third or fourth largest stadium in the Premier League. The largest is Old Trafford, which is, speaking of stadiums in dire need of, and stadiums showing their age, that's definitely one. We got here, yes, the Emirates is fifth largest by capacity at just over 60,000. And the idea is they would expand it further. I didn't quite see the number necessarily. Maybe it's been a while since I read the piece, but I mean, you're probably talking 70, 80,000. Old Trafford is the biggest at 74,000, so 80,000 would make it larger. I think Wembley is the largest stadium in the country. I think Wembley's close to 90. Wembley's quite large. But yeah, it would definitely make it one of the biggest stadiums. It would definitely put it back on the list for hosting events, including I guess it's obviously more international friendlies, maybe not England games. That's what Wembley's for, but certainly put it on the list for international events. The Euros are coming to the British Isles in, what is it? It's 2020. Is it 28? I think Euro 28 is supposed to be in Britain.
Okay.
But the Emirates is not on the list, so it's not on the top. But the idea is in the future it could potentially be part of that sort of thing. I guess potentially other European games. But the idea would be, it seems as the idea in terms of expanding the capacity would be changing the slope of the seating so that it would be a little steeper, because you can't really change the footprint they're in. That's the physical size of the stadium. It can't physically get bigger, but you slope the seats a little more and you can presumably build up. I think the model they're probably looking at in terms of a renovation is probably Real Madrid's renovation of the Bernabeu, which also put a retractable roof on it. I think we've talked about roofs on there. I feel like we have.
I think, a little bit. Yeah, we have.
Yeah, I think that would be the sort of the model in terms of a renovation that they'd be working on.
I would think if you're going up, it's not just like the angle. I would think that you could introduce multiple tiers like you see at stadia in the United States, like baseball in particular. You have like the upper decks and like there's overlap with people underneath other people.
Well, they have. I believe it looks like, as I see it on when I watch on TV, it looks like 3 decks already. Now there's the lower bowl, there's the upper deck, and then there's a mid-level. That's where the clubs and the box seats are. Right, that's typically what you'd see. And I think the idea is they take the seating area, not the club spaces; those would stay, of course, but they would take the others and kind of change. It looked like, based on the diagrams, they'd be changing the angles, which is how they'd be able to add more seats in without like essentially dropping another layer on top of it.
Yeah, a fourth deck
structure, or or having to expand it outward, which of course be difficult. Right. All of this, by the way, if they end up going through with it, this is all still kind of there. A lot of people are putting pieces together. There's ideas being floated out. The one piece of this is that during this is not the kind of renovation like say Fulham at Craven Cottage a couple of years ago, where they redid that whole one side on the riverbank. And they essentially played there with 3 stands.
Right.
If any of our viewers are watch Welcome to Wrexham, the same kind of thing. They're building that one stand behind one of the goals, but while still playing at their stadium. That's not going to be the case here. That's not going to work. They are going to have to find a place to play, probably for the course of a season. And it seems the most likely, at least certainly the one they're talking to about the most, would be Wembley for a year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Kind of a preview of their larger capacity.
Yeah. Now, I say this, Wembley has been done for this. Spurs was there for a season when they built the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which was right on top of the old, basically, right on the same site as the old White Hart Lane. Arsenal had played, and we have a piece in there in the linked in our notes as well from Amy Lawrence. Arsenal had played a handful of Champions League games there back in, I don't want to say that the mid to late 90s. I think they did that, and the sense was it wasn't great. It loses something from the atmosphere. It's in a different part of London, a very different part of London from Islington. So it's not the same kind of thing. So you kind of lose that home field advantage that you would get from being in there. So I think it's one of those that's kind of maybe not the whole renovation, but certainly some renovation is necessary. So some time away from it is going to be necessary, I think is kind of the thing we're looking for over the next few years.
Interesting. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't affect things too much, but it'll be nice when it's all done. It was funny. I forget what I was reading, but somehow the capacity of the Emirates and Highbury came up in something I was reading the last week or two. And it was interesting to me that apparently Highbury at its peak held around 60,000. And it's interesting that they didn't target making the Emirates hold more than that when they originally built it. That was an interesting choice.
Well, remember when that peak of its capacity would have been in the
with the terraces,
all cedar days. So that would be the days of the terraces where everybody, they would, what we would today call a fire code violation. So at its peak, yes. Now when they actually closed it, when they closed it was 38,000.
Okay. That makes more sense.
At the Emirates, that was part of building it, was substantially larger. And that was part of the point. And right now they've got a massive season ticket waiting list. Obviously the club is trying to strike while the iron's hot to a certain extent. And so there is capacity to build more, to add more seats, and to sell those tickets. Which I have to say is the kind of thing, if you had had this conversation maybe 5-10 years ago, I think it's a very different conversation. Even 5 years ago, sort of when Arteta was taking over, sort of the position the club was in. This is a lot about where they've been, how far they've come in all kinds of ways. That we can talk about this and talk about expanding the capacity and it being a good like believing that they would fill those extra seats.
Right. Yeah. Before we leave the topic of Arsenal Stadia, there's something that I wanted to bring up that has been on my mind for a few weeks since a viewer sent us a link. Hi, Dad. A viewer sent us a link to a video that has kind of a summary. It's like 8 minutes long or so, and it has a whole bunch. It claims to be, I think, every Arsenal chant, and I don't know if that's necessarily accurate or that any video probably could capture all of them, but it's definitely a good survey. It's worth listening to, watching through at some point, because it helps you pick out mostly... It looks like it's AI generated captions, and sometimes they're clearly wrong or spelled wrong at least, and don't always make sense. But yeah, it was good. It was interesting. There's a few that I was able to pick out the words for that I might have heard in the background and didn't identify in the past. So that's useful. There's also a couple that are just kind of like Bukayo Saka. It's like there's kind of a name repeated a little bit in a certain cadence, but yeah, it's good, and it goes way back to some of them that I don't think they would necessarily do anymore because it refers to players that aren't there anymore. But
yeah, it was an interesting listen. I was familiar with most of them. I've never heard the Saka one before. I'd never heard they did something for Jury and Timber that I was unfamiliar with, and then some of the old ones about Arsene Wenger,
right?
Thierry Henry.
Yep.
Like those are obviously. Thierry Henry occasionally shows up with the Champions League broadcasts and all
right.
that. The one Santi Cazorla was an interesting. Who doesn't love Santi Cazorla? At least anyone who saw him play when he was there with Arsenal.
Right.
But a nice listen, and it was nice to to be familiar with a bunch of them as well.
All right, let's talk about World Cup qualification. Do you want to start with CONCACAF?
All right. So, yeah, we got a long roster. Because, by the way, this is the last international break before the World Cup draw. Most of the qualifying spots will be determined in this break. A couple so far we'll get to at the end, and then by Tuesday. So we're starting with our CONCACAF. Now, remember, we picked a bunch of teams. Two each from each confederation except Europe, where we picked, 2 apiece, so we actually got 4 there. So we're tracking qualifying from CONCACAF. First, I chose Costa Rica, who had a rather troubling result. They lost at Haiti, away to Haiti, earlier this weekend. They will play Tuesday at home against Honduras. Now, in order to advance, they need to win that game. Honduras sits at the top of their group, and then they're going to need a little help. So they're currently on 6 points. Honduras is on 8. If they beat Honduras, they maybe will qualify for the Interconfederation playoffs. If they win, but Haiti also wins against Nicaragua, Haiti clinches a World Cup spot. So there's still a lot of maneuvering left. Costa Rica needs a win and some help to officially qualify. And a win might be enough to get them. Well, even now, actually, Haiti currently sits in the bottom of the ranking of second-place teams. So Costa Rica may need a win and some help to continue on, which is a wild thing to say about Costa Rica in CONCACAF qualifying.
Interesting.
Let's see. The other one there, Jamaica, was the other team we were watching in CONCACAF. That was your side. The Reggae Boys drew at Trinidad, which is not ideal, but they play Curacao in their final game. A win against Curacao will get them into the World Cup. They're a point behind Curacao. A draw puts Curacao into the World Cup, which, again, wild things to say. But for Jamaica, a win would put them in, and a draw would likely put them in the Interconfederation playoffs. A loss puts them in danger of missing. Every time I hear you saying the name Curacao, it always sounds like it's missing a syllable on the end to take it all the way to Kurosawa, the famed Japanese maker. No. This one's Dutch. So yeah, fun goings on in CONCACAF. There's a lot of interesting sort of permutations. I still think it's fairly likely we wind up with Jamaica qualifying. Panama and Suriname tied on top of Group A. I think it's still likely Panama wins out there. But, I mean, right now, currently sitting in World Cup spots for CONCACAF are Suriname, Curacao, and Honduras. with Jamaica, Panama, and Haiti fighting out for those second place team spots, and Costa Rica not even in that. So there's a lot of potential for CONCACAF to get really weird. There's also a lot of potential for CONCACAF to get actually pretty normal and wind up with Panama and Jamaica in, Costa Rica headed to the playoff.
Yeah. All right. What about UEFA? A lot going on there.
So UEFA, they're coming to the end in Europe. They're all over the map in terms of their qualifying. So I had dealt with the Czech Republic. They only had one game in this qualifying window, facing off with Gibraltar on Tuesday. Now their group has actually already been clinched. Croatia topped that group, which we'll mention at the end. But Croatia's already topped that group, and so the Czech Republic currently is set to finish in second. And they will go into the playoff round. And I tried to look at how the UEFA is seeding and deciding who goes into the playoff round, and I give up. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. They've added a whole bunch of points, like qualifying spots connected to your performance in the UEFA Nations League, which, of course, I don't follow, so I really don't know what's going on. But the Czech Republic is in that playoff round. Speaking of teams that are also in that playoff round is the other European team I chose to watch, and that's Italy, who beat Moldova, and then kind of already sort of knowing how things were going to play out, but played in Milan against Norway in their final game of qualifying and got thumped 4-1 in Milan. Yikes. So Italy finishes in second. They're in the playoff round, which is where they were 4 years ago, before they got beat by North Macedonia and didn't make the World Cup. So part of what drew me to the Italians was trying to see if they could, qualify for the World Cup, which they haven't done the last 2 times, which is crazy.
Wow. That is crazy. I mean, Italy is known for generally producing pretty quality players.
Italy's won it 4 times. Italy's one of the all-time great sides. They won the Euros in 2020. And here they are. There's a very real chance they miss the World Cup for the 3rd straight time, which is insane.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, go figure. Over to your clubs, your national sides. You chose Denmark, a draw against Belarus, which is a kind of a surprising result at home. Belarus isn't that good. Denmark has been good. What this means is they set up essentially a winner-take-all game in Scotland on Tuesday. Winner goes to the World Cup. If they draw, Denmark qualifies based on goal difference. So they need just a result to qualify. But if they lose away to Scotland, which isn't crazy to say, they're likely to be in the playoffs. So Denmark, I don't want to say they've choked this one away, but this would not be a good finish for them, given the position they were in. So let's see how that one plays out. And then finally, since we've already talked about it, you looked at Norway,
right?
Home of World Cup qualifying's leading scorer, Erling Haaland, who has 12 goals in 8 games, which is he's a machine. It's crazy. They beat Estonia to open this window, and then won in Milan, as we mentioned. They've qualified. Norway is back in the World Cup. So congrats to... I was going to give their nickname, and then I realized I don't remember it. Congrats to Norway. They're back in the World Cup for the first time since 1998. So it's been a while for them. I looked up. Their nickname is just Red, White, and Blue. Okay. So they're back in, but they're back in. Congrats to Norway. We will see them this summer here in the U.S. Speaking of which, we should also point out other teams have qualified from UEFA so far. France, Croatia, and Portugal joining the Norwegians, and England, who actually qualified in the last international break.
All right. That's exciting.
And then just quickly, we should throw in a few other ones.
Sure.
Quick. The 5th round of the Asian qualifying is ongoing. Iraq and UAE, the United Arab Emirates, went 1-1 in the first leg in Abu Dhabi. They'll play the second leg in Basra on Tuesday. Winner goes to the Intercontinental Playoff. Loser is out. Then finally in Africa, this was a wild one today. Nigeria eliminated in the final round of the playoff in this round, shootout loss to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. DR Congo is going to the Intercontinental Playoff. There they will join, obviously, the winner of Iraq UAE, as well as Bolivia, and who's the other one? New Caledonia, for a couple of spots remaining. There's two other spots. I forget who. Oh, yeah, the last two spots go to the two CONCACAF teams, and then out of that group will be two more qualifiers. So,
all right.
It's all getting very convoluted here.
Yeah, I imagine that's the way it goes toward the end. There's a lot of moving pieces.
There is. A little disappointed to see Nigeria out, I have to say. They're always a fun side, and 94 in the U.S. was a big World Cup for them in terms of their entrance onto the world stage, but they will not be here this summer, at least not as a team. If they come as fans, well, that's totally fine.
The U.S. men's national team had a friendly this week, right? How'd that go?
Yes, they played Paraguay last night. They beat them 2-1. Actually, a pretty good game overall. I thought the U.S. performance was very strong. Gio Reyna made his triumphant return to the U.S. lineup, scored a goal, had not an assist because the ball was deflected and doesn't count, but scored the opening goal, played a critical role in Balogun's game winner. Really good result for the U.S. Another win against a team that's going to be in the World Cup next summer, which is nice to see. They're going to face one more of those in this break. Tuesday, they're going to play Uruguay. Where was that game? Down in Tampa, they're going to be. So that'll be a real, well, it would be a stiff test, but I was just reading something. Apparently, Uruguay's only bringing in their, I guess they're not bringing in many of their European-based players. So perhaps a slightly weakened Uruguay, but that'd be a good opportunity to pick up a good result against what still is a very good team.
Yeah, interesting. I think I've mentioned before someone who I work with. It's the only person who I've talked to about soccer so far who doesn't follow a club, instead preferring to follow the players from Uruguay. I think his family is originally from there, and he follows all the different clubs where the international team members play. So it's an interesting way to do it. But I think of that with Uruguay.
There are definitely some guys who do that for the U.S. And I mean, mostly they run some websites where they sort of track American eligible players, which has become much more. It used to be much more important when they weren't playing in top European leagues, and now that more and more of them have been, it is definitely sort of interesting to keep an eye on.
I know we talked about with the last World Cup that Team USA lacked an obvious goal scorer. Is Valérien Balogun becoming that person? It seems like he's been pretty productive.
Yeah, right now he seems like that guy, and he's having a nice season too in France. So I'm very excited about his prospects. In a lot of ways, we've talked about this with Arsenal too, right? The goal scorer, the guy who's up front, who gets into position, who sometimes finishes the build-up. We didn't have that last time around. And between him, Haji Wright has looked pretty good as a second, I don't want to say a second striker, but certainly as a first option off the bench. I think that we look a little deeper up top, which is nice to be. Yeah. Balogun, I think, definitely is the number 9 come World Cup time. So obviously with the caveat that he's healthy.
Yeah, that's a great outcome for the focus of our show being like Arsenal and then kind of Team USA secondarily. We're like an Arsenal Academy player, right? He was Academy, right? He came up from the Academy. For him to contribute to Team USA in that way, it's pretty cool for us.
I know.
All right, as our YouTube viewers can see, we are wearing our MLS jerseys today, and there has been some exciting news when it comes to the coming 2026 to 2027, kind of spoiling a little bit, MLS season news. What was announced there?
Well, first we should start by pointing out. So each of us threw a version of these links into our notes to talk about, and it says a lot about both of us, I think. So I will talk about mine first, and I think that's the bigger one. Then we'll talk about yours. So,
the order you came to it makes more sense by far. Yeah.
So the big news: MLS is changing the calendar. Now, we teased this earlier this season. There were conversations, and I don't want to say they clearly didn't go nowhere. But finally came to fruition. This seemed to move very fast to me. I knew this was a conversation lurking in the background, and there was talk about it happening maybe in conjunction with the World Cup. That's obviously not going to be the case now. But MLS is shifting the calendar. This all of a sudden, I woke up like on Tuesday morning and said, "Oh, by the way, MLS is going to vote on this." And this is one of those things where if it's coming to a vote from the owners, it's going to pass. Like they're putting in a vote because they know they've got the numbers.
Yep.
So MLS is changing their calendar, going from a what we'd essentially call a summer season, starting out, summer starting in February. But the idea is running February through the summer to this time of year. The regular season ends in October, playoffs in November, MLS Cup first week in December. They're now shifting that starting in 2027, they will run a schedule very similar to that being done around much of the rest of the world, where they will be starting in the mid to late summer. I believe they officially are talking about mid to late July.
Okay.
For the start of the MLS season, and then running through the spring, and then having MLS Cup looks like sometime around the end of May. Now, one of the big, I should say, that comes with a very important caveat, that one of the big sticking points in the switch, in the idea of switching the calendar, is that there are a number of locations in the US and Canada where playing games in the wintertime is a very bad idea. In Toronto, Montreal, Minnesota, in Boston, New England, New York. Even like Columbus, Ohio. You get to these Philadelphia, not Pittsburgh, but Philadelphia. So you get to a lot of these northern cities, Denver, too, and Salt Lake City. So how they're going to do that is they're essentially going to take a break. There's going to be a winter break, which, according to their own graphics, looks like, and I have to pull this in a separate window to make sure I could read this properly. Looks like, based on their own graphics, that this is going to be mid-December to about mid-February, so about 2 months off, roughly 2 months off. And they'll have, roughly about 2 months off. Now, this is somewhat similar to, you see this a lot in Latin American countries with a 2-half season, what they call the Apertura and the Clausura, the opening and the closing. This is not going to be like that, because those seasons are still like Liga MX has 20 teams. In the Apertura, you basically play half your schedule, and then the Clausura, you play the same teams, but just reverse the home and away. So you're only playing one game, and then they have little playoffs and a big playoff, the Campeón de Campeones, and just all these kind of... It's just a little different. We're not doing that. This is probably more closely modeled on what you'd see in some like Scandinavian countries. I think Russia does the same thing. Even Germany kind of does this too, where they take a break in the winter. Now, the German winter break is just around the holidays. That idea where the European continental leagues take about 2 weeks off, or the Premier League is like, let's throw as many games in there as we can. This is going to be about 2 months, end up about 2 months off. And the other bit that I thought was interesting is they're changing the standings. It will no longer be separate conferences. It will be a single table. So all 30 teams. Now, what there was talked about, and I didn't see this in any of the MLS official releases. I could have just missed it. This is another interesting bit. They were essentially going to divide the 30 teams into, they called them divisions. And the idea with the divisions is you would play everybody in your division twice, home and away, and then you would play everyone else in the league once.
Okay.
And presumably over 2 seasons, you would essentially flip the home and away.
Okay.
The presumption, I think, was that because it didn't seem like they wanted the divisions to be a big deal. Sort of like in most other American sports with their divisions. They didn't want it to be quite like that. But definitely, they talked about it as probably, I guess, a division winner should automatically qualify for the playoffs. But in a single table, a division winner would almost certainly finish in, I assume, the top 16 is what they would be going for. And then it seems like it would just be a straight, I don't know if it was straight knockout, if they were going to do this. We talked about that silly 3 games, 3-game series, or would they go to the home and go to the old 2-legged ties? I don't know. They probably haven't figured that out yet, but
this is just another instance of, okay, they'll change it again. We're used to it.
Yeah. They'll change it. Yeah, they'll change it again soon enough. But yeah, this is a massive change. So it's going to take place in summer of 2027. So obviously we're going to head. We're only a couple weeks left in the 2025 season. 2026 is going to run normal with clearly there's going to be a break in June for the World Cup. I would guess they take off during the group stages and then probably start to pick up maybe in the latter stages of the knockout rounds. Probably at that point, you're probably going to be many MLS players that are currently playing. I mean, Messi, I suppose, but who needs that guy? And then they'll play 2026 the same way they played this one, 25. In the first part of 2027, so like the first half of the calendar year, they're talking about playing a truncated. So I think they said like a 14-game schedule with a playoff, and they would crown an MLS Cup champion in the early summer. So I guess probably around May. They would take the summer off, June into July, and then start 2027 start the next season. And that first half would essentially be mostly for bookkeeping purposes, but also to get qualifiers for CONCACAF Champions League, for Leagues Cup, for all the other competitions that they have qualifications for. So yeah, this is going to be a massive shift. The biggest thing that it's going to do, and I think is really the reason they're doing it, is this now aligns MLS, because the calendar's aligned that way, it also aligns MLS with the international transfer calendar.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So because MLS is still at this point considering itself a seller's league. They buy young players, develop them, or reveal their talents a bit, and then let European clubs pop in and pick and choose who they want while turning a profit on those players.
Right.
That's generally the model they're working on. And
interesting. Yeah.
What you've been running into since with the calendar schedule is Europe's main transfer window is the summer, right?
Yeah.
Well, MLS teams don't want to sell during the summer because it's right in the middle of the season.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
MLS teams want to sell in their off season, which is January. But European teams don't want to make big purchases in January. You want to buy somebody who can be an immediate help to your team, like who solves a problem for you right away. And you're probably still buying some developmental pieces out of MLS at this point. So I think that's the real reason they've been saying that's really important. That's a real reason they're making the shift like this. I think figuring out the calendar logistics was the hard part. But.
Yeah, and I mean, hearing what you're describing as the difference in the calendar, I mean, it's ultimately they're playing mostly the same times of the year. It's not like all of a sudden they're off all summer. If it's just like a 1 to 1.5 month break in the summer, there's already a 2 month or so break. Like we see the MLS Cup is going to push into like the end of November. I mean, it's like you're not really off most of the winter anyway. If they're already taking off that 2 month break in the winter, you're just kind of adding in a summer break and they're playing the rest of the year. That those reasons do add up then that the transfer market is the big thing. That at least by changing the line about where you transition from one season to the next, that lining up should help a lot of that. Hopefully we get a lot better players who are able to make it into MLS for that reason.
Well, yeah, and really it's not so much players into MLS, it's players out of MLS, selling those players. I think that's still largely where the league is going to be, certainly for I'd say the next couple of seasons at least. It's going to be about developing young talent in the Americas and then selling it to Europe. Okay. As well as a few gems that they'll find in other places. Again, not every player has a linear development path. There have been plenty of guys who sort of played their way into, national team contention or pick the picture even while playing for MLS teams during the prime of their career. So like it's still something of a balancing act. But yeah, and the commissioner made this point, by the way, in terms of the calendar, there's actually most of the calendar where they currently play is where they're going to play in the future. Like in a sense, they're covering the same periods.
Right. Exactly.
The difference, of course, being is where the important games are being played. I mean,
right.
Of course, they're all important games, we know. But if you think about
less than when you compare to like England, right? Like England, it really is they're all kind of on the same footing with the playoff structure. Like the playoffs do make a big difference in MLS.
Oh, absolutely, and those aren't going away. That they're going to keep the playoffs,
right. But they're moving. Like those are happening in a different time of the year now.
Right, and so you think about it, the idea is the playoffs now will be in May, where if you think about it from the perspective, as we've talked about from the business perspective, MLS's competition is other sports, other entertainment. Now you run your playoffs in May around the same time as the NBA and NHL playoffs and the early part of the Major League Baseball's regular season. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, is it behind the NBA? Yeah. Is it behind baseball? Yeah. Is it behind the NHL? Not by much, and probably depends a little bit on the market you're looking at. As opposed to now, your playoffs are going head to head with American football, both collegiate and professional.
Yep.
And that is a fight you're going to lose. Like, let's be clear about that. And even too, I mean, think the first rounds of the playoffs in October. I mean, that was the Major League Baseball playoffs heading into the World Series. Like it's really a question of sort of what's the prime properties there, and so by moving. I mean, that was always the argument for having the summer schedule, is that your only competition is baseball, which is fair enough. But now, maybe that doesn't make as much sense. Maybe now it does make more sense. I'm curious to see how the winter break is the thing that still makes me a little nervous. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out, how people adapt to it and adjust to it. But we'll see. It's going to be really fascinating to see. And so that's coming in 2027. And it's the next couple of years, American soccer is going to have some interesting changes with the World Cup, with MLS changing. Allegedly, USL is going to start its own promotion relegation in 27 or 28, somewhere in there. I'm still kind of skeptical. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, so the news that I brought to the show notes that I saw first because of my historical focus on Apple and its surrounding ecosystem of, different things going on. The first thing that I saw out of this week's announcements was that the TV rights deal has been updated with Apple for MLS. So the way that it has worked through the end of this season, this 2025 season as we record, is you can subscribe to MLS through Apple's Apple TV service, but it's a separate add-on. You pay whatever it is. It's around $100 a year, similar to for baseball or basketball or other sports where you're able to get their direct offering. The big difference being there are no blackouts or anything, so you can purchase from anywhere and watch anywhere. And it's an international deal, which is also really cool for the sport. That, of course, not that MLS necessarily has too much in the way of international fans who want to watch MLS. Although I suppose if you have people who follow like international players from their home countries who happen to play in MLS, I guess that's beneficial for them. But so what's changing now is instead of it being a separate add-on that you can get, I believe, irrespective of whether you pay Apple for what they used to call Apple TV Plus. That used to be a separate service. So if you want to watch Ted Lasso, right, you needed what they used to call Apple TV Plus, which they're now rebranding, and that part is just Apple TV. So you can watch Apple TV original programming with the Apple TV service, optionally on an Apple TV box, but always through an Apple TV app wherever you're watching it, right? It's all Apple TV all the way up the stack. So now what they're changing for next season is all you need is that Apple TV membership. So if you want to watch Ted Lasso, you will have the ability at no extra cost to also watch all of the MLS matches for that season also, as long as you're subscribed. So that's a pretty big deal. I mean, hopefully that's aimed at bringing more viewers in who might not have wanted to pay the extra, like kind of like how I was on the fence the first time. And I was like, you know what? I joined kind of midway through a season or two ago when Messi came in, basically. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I guess I'll give it a shot. And I'm still kind of casual, and it's worth it to me for the matches that I do watch. But I would be way more likely to tune it in casually if I didn't have to have a separate subscription. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that was one of the criticisms of the MLS season pass, as it were, was that it was it wasn't even that it was another subscription. And of course, the fact that Apple at that time didn't really have any sports made that kind of a dicey proposition. But the fact also that it was a subscription on top of another subscription potentially, oh wait, don't I get it? I have Apple TV Plus. Don't I get it? No, actually, you have to do another thing on top. So, on the other hand, it did, as I understand it, it does actually, because Apple TV Apple has the way Apple broadcasts around the world, it actually did make MLS much more accessible globally than it had been in previously. So in that sense, it benefited. But obviously, in the American market, I think nobody's actually giving any official numbers or information. But my suspicion is it did not go quite as well as either that. Certainly as Apple was hoping.
Well, also apparently, and this is not in the official press release that we're linking in the show notes, but this is something that others that reported on it were commenting on. Apparently, the deal has also been shortened. So when they first announced it a couple seasons ago, it was a 10-year deal. And now it's, I think I'd read maybe 6 or 7 years. It's not the full 10-year term. But what's also cool for sports fans is not only will you get MLS with your Apple TV subscription, you will also get Formula One, which is coming to Apple TV. So that's also included with your subscription, no additional cost. And the Friday Night Baseball deal that they've had for 2-3 years running, you'll get that also. That's never been a separate subscription because no one would pay them for just Friday night games a couple a week. But yeah, so you get all of that. And I think that's also sunset. I think that may be going away in the next year or two, the Friday Night Baseball. But
yeah, I was supposed to say, I thought I had heard that one was going away, but
it is. They're still advertising it as one of the offerings you can get with it, but yeah, I think it's still in place for next baseball season. But that may be the last one that's under the current contract or something, maybe. But yeah,
I feel like Formula One is a really good one as there because it's one of those like it's more of an event in that there's only one race a week, so you're tuning in, and whereas with like the Friday Night Baseball, if the Yankees are playing, I'm going to track that down. If the Yankees aren't playing, I don't care.
Yeah, it was like that with my brother-in-law. Like, every couple months when the Yankees are on Friday Night Baseball, I'd ask me for my login or something. And I didn't give him my main Apple ID because that would be a disaster. We have a secondary one that we use for stuff that multiple people in the family are watching. So I was able to give him that without hesitation. So yeah, interesting developments there. That'll be fun to see as we go on. Hopefully all of it is in service of making MLS more popular and growing the fan base and making the league better and getting more American talent. And it's a virtuous cycle that just spirals up into U.S. dominance in soccer.
Yep, taking down the world. That's how we do it.
Yep.
As every viewer from any other country rolls their eyes, I heard them. I heard all of you.
All right, so we're going to cover some general questions now, some things that have been on my mind that I've wanted to talk to you about that we never quite find time, especially when this part of the season for Arsenal, we have usually at least a couple games a week that we're talking about. So the first one that I've had on my mind to ask you about for a while is, tell me about what it's like at the pub. It's in our sign off every week. You watch Arsenal matches, the weekend Premier League matches. You almost always watch with the Houston Gooners at the designated meetup spot for that season. And we haven't really gone into detail about what that's like for you, at least on the air. I've talked to you about it a little bit offline. But why don't you just walk us through what the crowd is like, what you do there, what it's like during the match, before, after, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I usually, there's not too much in the way of before. I usually show up, right about, I try to get there before kickoff, but sometimes you kind of walk in, 2 minutes in. It's a bit of a hike from where I am in the city. And of course there's traffic and all of that. But overall, this season in particular, partly because they keep playing games at 10:30, they play a lot of these late morning games. It has been very crowded. Now, a lot of that, of course, is tied into the team is really good. As we've talked about, sort of our opponent list has been kind of stacked for the first part of the season so far. But there's a group of people who have been regulars since I've been going close to a decade now. And there's a group of people kind of latched onto that I always find. They're always sitting in the same place, get a beer, and then you're just chatting. sometimes depending on how the game's going, if it's particularly intense, you get super focused. Sometimes as the games get a little kind of dry out, so to speak, we kind of, we start talking about other things, how work's going, kids, family, all the, your people there in a place that you see once a week for several months. And now in this case, you've seen for a number of years. Mm-hmm. It's fun. Obviously, there's a lot of noise when they score. There's a lot of singing and chanting. I'm led to understand that we're a bit more of a rambunctious group than a lot of other places. I've heard from some other places. I mean, not like there's anybody causing trouble, but you'll definitely some places where it's just like it's a handful of them. They're all sitting at tables and kind of relaxing, and when they score, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got people screaming, jumping up and down, singing. There's a lot of hugging when goals are scored. It's nice this time of year, frankly, because of the weather. The early part of the season, I think we all sweat as much as if we'd been running in the game. It was pretty, it's pretty gross in that regard.
Houston in the summer, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and they've been some big games. They'll get well over 100 people into it. It's
oh wow.
I still remember back some of the days, even last year, like some of the 6 a.m. kickoffs, you'd get like the real diehards. There's like 10, 15 people in there. And of course, with the 6 a.m. going, listen, I dragged my sorry butt out here at 6 o'clock in the morning. They better frickin' win. And they actually have usually done fairly well in those early kickoffs. It's fun. It's a communal experience because it's one of those things that if I didn't have it, I would be at home and just watching it on TV. I mean, the nice thing about Premier League games is they take place at a time where I wouldn't be watching anything else. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of nice that this exists in this format in this way, and to have that shared experience with people who, all are all there for the same reason. The Arsenal likes to go back to this line from Dennis Bergkamp. The club is about finding a place where you belong, and it's nice to have that kind of group of people. And obviously, most of what we talk about is Arsenal and soccer and all of that. But it's sort of nice to have that kind of group as well. There is a small sense of community that it builds, as opposed to a group text, which I have for other people for other things, or you and I having this show. It's nice to have that kind of group to watch with.
Right. As far as when you're there, is everyone wearing their jerseys? Like, what is it like there? Yeah.
Oh, wide variety of kits over the last however many years. A lot of people have some retro stuff, and Houston's a very international city, so there's people from all over the world. People who grew up in all sorts of different countries and are now here in Houston, here in the U.S., but still following Arsenal. And all sorts of people. But it's large enough. There's a bunch of people there that I've never seen before, or I've only ever seen them. I don't know who they are. I don't know their names. Or you see them, or some folks you see once a month or once every couple of weeks, or it's any group that size. I mean, we usually get 50 to 60 regulars, and then well over 100 for some of the bigger games.
And because this is in the morning at a bar, I mean, those are people who are there for that game. They're not just wandering in and there happens to be a game on.
Right. Now, of course, Houston is also a very driving center. You can't really walk places in Houston. So, everybody has made the conscious decision to be there, and it's worked out with the bar, and it's open. And they have a kitchen and they serve food, so that's why they're allowed. They're a restaurant, that's why they're allowed to operate and sell alcohol early in the morning, even on Sundays. Well, technically in Texas, you're not allowed to sell alcohol before noon.
Okay,
which is true, like in a grocery store or a liquor store, things like that. But they are since they have a kitchen and they serve food, they're a restaurant. Restaurants can do whatever they want. So,
okay,
well, within reason, obviously. But yeah, it's a lot of work is working with the ownership and the management, making sure there's staff on site and they're good people, and they kind of understand the benefit of having a bunch of people show up and spend a lot of money on alcohol first thing in the morning.
Yeah. How close is it? I think the only visual I can pull up of what it might be like is the pub that you see that's right near the racetrack in the Ted Lasso show, where you see that group of three guys who are the diehard fans who are there for every match watching there. The same bar where Ted Lasso and Coach Beard go a few times throughout the show. How close is it to that, if that's what I'm picturing?
In terms of like its general structure, I mean, yeah, it's a bar, it's a sports bar, has a few more TVs, I'd say. There you're getting into like the neighborhood pub and sort of the place that holds, particularly in England, which
right.
There's some places have neighborhood bars and whatnot. It kind of, when you consider we're all there for the same reasons. But if there are like actual regulars to that place, because like we just talked about the times, I don't know that the actual regulars are there, for that.
Right.
And it is a sports bar. He's got like different flags hanging up for the different supporters groups that are there. We share it with the Barcelona supporters group, which a couple weeks ago we actually got. We weren't kicked out, but we went to had to go to a different location because I think we were playing Palace, and Arsenal and Barcelona was in El Clasico with Real Madrid, so they
big match. Okay.
But like also the fan group for the Los Angeles Chargers, American football team is there. So you have those kind of groups all over the city for those different kinds of things.
Oh, okay, cool. So before you found the Houston Gooners, were you just basically watching like on your couch at home, like I do more or less? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I started doing it like right when I moved here, in part just because I thought it'd be fun and I needed something to do. And I moved here. I didn't know anybody, so
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. You found your tribe.
and I think also it may have been a point like when I moved here, it might have even been before my stuff arrived. So it's like I could sit in my apartment with like a card table and a laptop, or I could like go somewhere and like do anything.
That's certainly as good a reason as any. So no, that's all good. Thank you for painting that word picture. So I'll keep that in mind as the matches are going on, and I think about you down there. One other thing that occurred to me just in the last couple of weeks is, we were kind of closing in on the end of the Major League Baseball season, and people whose teams didn't make it as deep into the playoffs as they would have liked, or complaining about various players, deadwood that their team needs to clear out, stuff like that. And I was reflecting watching Arsenal and just seeing the players on the pitch, the players on the bench, the players injured and not on the bench, and just thinking, I really like all these guys. Like, this is a really good group of players. I don't really take issue with anybody who I've seen this season. First of all, is it the same for you? And second, is that as rare as it seems like it might possibly be?
I mean, let's start with that first question. This is a likable group. And part of it is we've gotten a chance to sort of see them grow and develop. There's a lot of them been around, and especially in the last few years, we've seen sort of the conscious construction of the club, which is always a fun part of the season. It's a fun part of sort of the life cycle of a team, watching them build. And so, that's been helpful. There's always a few players we see them as scapegoats. I mean, the big reason we don't really have any scapegoats is because we're winning constantly. So it's hard. There's always going to be people who whine and nitpick about certain things. But the truth is, there's really not a whole lot to complain about, except the injuries. But everybody hates injuries. There's usually always a few players you're like, I hate when he plays, or he's so bad, or and sometimes it just comes from overexposure. You started to see this with like Zinchenko late in the season. You'd see some people doing it, even Martinelli late last year, or even players like Trossard and moments like that where it's just I'm just tired of that guy. I'm just tired of seeing that guy. Yeah. Or when something goes wrong, it's obviously that guy's fault. Sometimes they're a little bit of off the field things. We didn't talk about Thomas Partey much on the air, but obviously, as we've sort of hinted at, some of his legal issues were known. And it does kind of change the fact that as you watch him play and you're like, yeah, I'd love him to play well, but also it's a little weird. And some people compartmentalize that better than others do. I generally compartmentalize that pretty well. As long as he's playing, we want it to do well. But some people have a real problem with that. And I get that. And I'm not going to tell anyone how to be a fan. So sometimes you have things like that where the off-field stuff, and sometimes it's also like players have something to say about various political issues, which of course, which we're not going to get into here, but you can see how that would drive people's opinions on them. So yeah, but at the moment, right now, we're kind of flying high, and you look up and down the roster, and right now, as far as we know, they seem like a really good group, and it's nice. It's nice to see them.
All right, the moment that our viewers and listeners have all been waiting for. This was kind of left as a little bit of a teaser at the very end of our episode. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago now. We either just had played or were about to play Fulham, and we talked about Kraven Cottage and how the first thing I think of whenever I hear that is still Kraven the Hunter. And I think the first thing that you thought of when you heard Kraven the Hunter was the movie that just came out a couple of years ago, which I mentioned I did see and I actually didn't hate, and I wanted to revisit that. But more broadly, I'm a huge fan of the Spider-Man franchise. And back during my college years, I undertook a project to read every single Spider-Man issue that had been published to that point. So going back from 1962 through roughly, I think this was around like 2006, 2007, in that time period, to read everything. And that's not just across the Amazing Spider-Man, which ran at least monthly and at times like or semi-monthly through its run. But then at various times, you would also have the Spectacular Spider-Man, the Sensational Spider-Man, all these other titles where you might have, in some spans of that time, you would have a Spider-Man issue coming out every week. So that was a lot to catch up on, and I did that, and I love it. I've seen just about every animated series that there's been. I've obviously seen all the movies, and in today's world, what that really comes down to is there's the MCU stuff, and then there's the Sony stuff. And it's this troubled situation where Sony is desperately holding on to their intellectual property rights over the Spider-Man franchise, and they've let Marvel use the Spider-Man characters and certain specific villains, like Spider-Man and specific villains, in their MCU movies because they know how to make a good movie featuring Spider-Man, where Sony lost that after the second Sam Raimi movie. And if they don't put out their own movie using these characters, they lose the rights. So this has left us, since the movie Venom came out, this was, I don't know, 2009 or 10 or something like that. Sometime it was a while back. Maybe, no, that was around 16 or 17 that came out. You've had these movies that they release, that Sony releases specifically, that are in Spider-Man's universe, but without the Spider-Man character, and basically never even acknowledging the existence of a Spider-Man character. This is like an alternate Spider-Man universe where Spider-Man never existed, but all these other characters around him have existed, right? And I've seen all of them because I kind of can't help but see them. And I don't rush out I don't think I've seen any of those that don't have the Spider-Man character in the theater, except until after my son loved the original Venom movie so much that I did see the 2 Venom sequels in the theater with him. But it's because he loves it so much. I'm not like running up to the theater to see the latest Venom movie. Venom, I thought, was good. The sequel with Carnage was okay. It was, it wasn't bad. The third one, a little less maybe, but overall those have been good. But then you also have Morbius, you have Madam Web, you have Kraven the Hunter. I think those are all of them that have come out aside from the Venom ones. And I started realizing with Madam Web, like, I really like this movie for some reason. And a part of me wonders if it's Stockholm Syndrome. Like, if it's just like, I need a little hit from that world. And like, even if it comes from like a less than great source, like there are things that I like about them. And even Kraven the Hunter, which I watched in the last year, I saw this fairly recently. It's been on Netflix. I watched it and like, it shouldn't exist. And its existence bothers me. Like the Venom movies where he has these Spider-Man powers, but there is no Spider-Man to give those powers to the symbiote that then give them to Eddie Brock. And it makes absolutely no sense. This movie should not make sense. It doesn't make sense and it shouldn't exist, right? I still like it. And there's things that they do with Kraven that are weird. Like he becomes a hero where he's always just been a villain trying to kill Spider-Man. And like, that's because it's the most dangerous game. If you're familiar with that short story, right? Like, man is the most dangerous game, right? Spoilers. Sorry. But like, it's that kind of thing. Like he's hunted everything there is. Now he wants to hunt Spider-Man because that's the only challenge remaining. And then he can be fully accomplished as a hunter. And Spider-Man ain't so easy. And he never actually succumbs to Kraven. But now they turn him into kind of like this anti-hero, which is what they have to do with these movies. If you're building it around Kraven, well, he kind of has to turn into a hero, and he's just kind of like a vigilante killing like worse guys and stuff like that. And its central concept is bad, but like there are things that I like, and the fan service, like they have the rhino in this movie, and it's actually like a different take on the rhino, but not bad. And I need help. I guess that's ultimately where I landed in my Letterboxd review, is like I'm captive to these. I can't stop watching them. Please help me.
I guess if you say it, it's a little less weird than if I say it, but yeah, that's I was about to say, defend yourself, Kraven the Hunter. Okay. Yeah, no, I guess that, you and I both suffer from the same problem, which is we're completionists. We start something, we must finish it.
Yes.
however, wherever that takes us, and unfortunately, so.
Yeah, and I fear for my future now, having become an Arsenal completionist, because oh boy, now that I've uncorked that bottle, the genie that's come out of it might be a little much for the rest of my life, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's the fun about the football, as Mitchell and Webb remind us, it never ends. There will always be more football. So,
yep. And things do happen. I mean, once I caught up on Spider-Man in the 2007-2008 time frame, I kept current and read all the current issues as they were coming out, and did that for almost 10 years. Until it was either after he was born or when we were expecting my son. It's like all of a sudden, like I did not have time for that anymore, and that fell by the wayside. And I haven't read any of his new stuff, aside from some things I wrote with my son. I haven't read him like monthly in a long time, and I do miss that. And I'm hoping that my son and I get back to it at some point. I would love to undertake that project with him, reading everything. But while he likes Spider-Man, it's not his favorite character. So, it's that's probably not going to happen. But, we might do a similar journey with Hulk or Wolverine or one of the other characters that he likes even more than Spider-Man. And that could be fun in its own way. So, thank you for indulging me in that. Yeah. What was that?
I said remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What is coming up next week?
Isn't it impressive how we filled so much space on the international break? Yeah, so we're back at it. We are back at it. So the coming week, we'll focus more on the first one, but the coming week, we're probably the biggest, most competitive week Arsenal has it probably end up being the entire season. They will play Tottenham Hotspur, North London Derby, Sunday. That'll be on Peacock. So buckle up. I will say this. Spurs definitely look improved. Thomas Frank has done a good job with them. Obviously, remember him from Brentford and some of the difficulties we had playing Brentford over the years. Spurs have definitely improved a lot on set pieces. So maybe a game of dueling corners, which could be interesting. I expect it to be a tough one, but I think we'll be favored for good reason. Obviously, pending some of the injuries. Hopefully, we have some injured players returning. Really quickly following that up next week on Wednesday, Champions League, home against Bayern Munich, and then Sunday away to Chelsea, back in the league. So the 8 days, it's going to be a wild 8 days. So start with the North London Derby, and hopefully we'll see you all on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe last year I wouldn't have looked at Chelsea the same way as much of a threat, but they've been in pretty good form this season. So. All right, well, thank you for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with a link in the show notes. Your homework for today is for everyone to pound, smash, or annihilate the like button on this video. We record the show using Zencastr. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove. You can find me on Twitter at DoveFrankel and also on Letterboxd at DoveF if you want to read my linked Kraven the Hunter review that goes into a little more detail on some of my thoughts. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
And North London is red.